Doing great. Today, really, I want to talk about some things that happen to us. I want to talk about how our environment and our circumstances tend to, or the things that happen to us in life tend to hold us back and become the wall between us and the things that we want, and how they seem to be the stumbling block in our lives, and how we never really get to the promised land or the place that we really want to get as human beings, as we have personal dreams and achievements that we have deep down in our hearts, and some of the things that hold us back from achieving those things. And I think as human beings, once we when you're watering trees, I'm sorry, and you happen to pull the hose to the other side of the house, and as you're pulling it to go water the plants on the other side, somewhere the hose forms a loop, and it kind of cuts off the water from watering, so obviously you have to come back and unfasten the loop, so that water can flow to the other side and you can water your plants. It's the same thing with us as human beings. When we have limiting beliefs, or when we have things that we hold on to that happened to us in the past, or when we allow our circumstances and environment to then cut off the energy flow that allows us to believe that it's possible for us to achieve the things that we want in life, we tend to remain in that place for too long, and then several years down the line we get to find ourselves in a situation we really had no idea we would end up in. I'm reminded of the story of this guy that was on death row, and really because he had become a nuisance to society, and the law had finally caught up with him. And so this reporter guy wanted to find out exactly what happened to him, what leads people to end up becoming something like the man that he had become. So the guy that was on death row figured, man, I'm gonna be killed anyway, so I might as well give you this interview. Sure enough, the reporter guy came through. They sat down, and then he asked him a series of questions, but really the question that he was interested in knowing is, what was his life story? What was the things that happened to him that led him to where he is? The guy kind of, I remember, the kind of just kind of looked down, and when he looked him up, he said to him, "Look, man, I grew up in the ghetto, poor. I grew up among drugs, guns, and violence. Police were always all around, man. By the time I was 15, I had buried 10 of my friends. My father used to beat me and my mother. What do you expect? Huh?" The reporter guy, after he wrapped it up, he figured, man, thank you, but I understand. You've been through a very rough, upbringing. Who am I to judge, right? He thanked him and he left. Several months down the line, the same reporter guy was now doing an interview on successful people. He found out some of the guys that he wanted to do an interview, and he was particularly intrigued by this one guy, and he asked to do an interview on him. And sure enough, the guy agreed. They sat down together. He asked him also a series of questions as to how he became successful, but he wanted to know, the motivating factor behind his success. And the guy simply looked at him and said, "Look, I come from the ghetto, alright? I grew up among guns, drugs, and violence. Police were always around, man. When I was 15, I had buried 10 of my friends. My father used to beat me and my mother. I had to get out, And that's the thing right there. That's the thing right there. Two people growing up in the similar circumstances and choosing very, very different fates and destinies in life. And the ironic part about these two guys is that they were actually brothers. Yes, they were brothers. And then maybe you begin to ask your question, but how come that these two guys raised in the same household by the same abusive father, with the same police, drugs and violence and guns environment around them, how come they became two different people? Really, the guy that ended up on death row, it was simple. He accepted his reality. He accepted his environment. He let everything that happened around him become him. You see, they say it's not what you do not, it's who you believe you are not that holds you back, not who you think you are. Who you believe you are not, that's what holds you back. And he believed that he was what he was born into, right? And he never saw himself as something else outside of his community. And that one thing led him to, then conform to what was happening around him and accept that life as it was his reality, and therefore he became a product of his environment. Whereas the other guy did not let what was happening around him hold him back from having a vision, a dream, a plan, an idea of who he is, and live into that image. Because that's what we need to do as human beings. You see, sometimes I believe we let go of the power that we have within us to change. Only animals cannot change. A dog can be nothing but a dog. A tiger can be nothing else but a tiger. But human beings can move from different phases by changing the way we think, the image we hold of ourselves, and the possibilities that we have about ourselves. So, the question is, what are you going through in life that you are letting it hold you back? What is cutting off your energy source from you reaching your ultimate goals? What are you holding on to? What beliefs do you have about yourself, about your potential, about your environment that are holding you back from achieving what you want? What do you constantly say to yourself that you have already accepted as your reality, even though it's not what you want? That's the thing about us human beings sometimes, that we're quick to let everything else define us. We don't choose who we're going to be. And that's the power that we have as human beings, to say, this is who I'm going to be. Despite what's happening around me, I have a vision, I have a goal, and I know I'm going in life, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to get there. And none of this that are happening around me are going to dictate for me where and who I'm going to be. I mean, take this man that I'm wearing his t-shirt for example, Nelson Mandela. When all odds were stacked against him, never did anybody ever imagine that it would be true, that the vision that he had, that the dream that he dreamed would actually become a reality. But that's what happens to you when you have a strong and compelling vision about your life, is that as long as you want it bad enough, eventually the universe conspires in your direction, and eventually things happen as you are, just like things happened for the brother that became successful. Do not let your circumstances or environment dictate for you who you are going to be, despite who is saying what to you. Because yes, sometimes there are people that are saying things to us, but that's not who we are. That's who they think we are. We have to hold to an image that we have about ourselves. When things were looking bad for Nelson Mandela and apartheid was killing South Africa bad, he had a vision, he held it. And when he came out of prison, he held on to that vision. And today South Africa is a free country, where everybody is free to trade and become contributors to the economy and become whatever they want. South Africa is now a beautiful country, because of one man's vision. And out of all the calamity that was happening, he saw a dream, he saw a vision. He did not let everything cloud his emotion and cloud his thinking. So remember that it's not the card that you're dealt, but how you play those cards. Remember that somebody could take your hand and win with it. Do not think that you do not have what it takes to get there. You do. You just need to focus on what is important and let go of all these things that are just a distraction, because your environment and your circumstances and the people around you are merely just a distraction. You need to remember that you are in control of your destiny, baby. So go after your dreams and remember that you have what it takes to get anything that you want in life. Cheers, good luck, man.
Yeah.